Hi, this is Dr. Giudice from Larchmont Wellness, and today's discussion is going to be talking about weight loss, specifically our Shape Reclaimed program. So some concepts we're going to approach having to do with redefining medicine's approach to inflammation, immunosuppression, and obesity. So if you ever taken the time to define food, uh, as you see on the screen, is a material consisting of essentially protein, carbohydrate, and fat used in the body of an organism to sustain growth, repair, and vital processes to furnish energy. And it's no surprise that we end up in the place that we're in today, because a lot of people are using food for things other than what's listed here. Many people eat food only for taste reasons, is because what they like or what they crave. However, when you really start to break it down, this is what it comes down to. So this is going to be a common thing that people run across, is sometimes people might lose weight and put it right back on, or sometimes even worse, gain even more weight. Lots of people will exercise and still not gain weight, and there's a lot of reasons why. So we know, as we'll discuss later, that fat inherently is inflammatory, and when we're in an inflamed state, it's hard to utilize weight loss as a tool. And also very common, who's tried a diet or exercise routine that has worked for somebody else but hasn't worked for you. And most people are going to say yes who are watching this video there. So some of the reasons being, everyone's got different bodies, metabolisms, hormones, brains, etc. And there needs to be a customized approach for that individual. So there's a lot of different weight loss theories going on about there, about nutrient deficiencies, about exercise, caloric restriction, and such, and we're going to discuss some of these today. And if you look at here, the web of fat loss, the web of physiological dysfunction, you can see that there's any number of contributors to inability to lose fat. Some of the common ones being here are going to be hormone imbalances, thyroid dysfunction, adrenal, gut, liver, blood sugar, emotional, cellular dysfunction as far as producing energy, brain and neurotransmitter, immune imbalances, and these are things that you can have one or all of these going on at the same time. So one thing that people need if they're going to succeed in a regimented program like this is the willingness to make some sort of change. And I'm not saying short-term change to go on a diet, but long-term change to be able to affect their health and well-being from now till the end. So as we're going to go through a bunch of slides, I'm going to go through them fairly rapidly. These are some statistics from the Centers of Disease Control. And you can see here in the coloration that going back as far as 1985 and 1986, you can So what you see on the previous slides are the ever-growing population of people who are overweight and obese, and pretty striking as you look over the past 30 plus years of how dramatically the numbers have gone up. And you notice I went to 2010 because it states on the CDC, and you can pull up these same maps on the CDC website. It says 2011 obesity estimates cannot be compared to estimates from previous years, and that's simply due to the frank increase in obesity. So depending on where you are in the state, you can see there's a regional breakdown, and there's some numbers here on self-reported obesity. which is obviously not accurate. Some factual data on children getting more obese. It's all over the news, but we can hardly say that anything's being done about it. When you consider the government considering pizza being vegetable, is we're far from where we need to be as far as getting ourselves healthier and getting our kids healthier. One important thing to note here is that obesity increases inflammation. And if you look here at this data, you can see fat cells on the right producing what we call pro-inflammatory cytokines, TNF-alpha, interleukin-1, interleukin-6. And all these things are inflammatory in nature and actually are going to be quite damaging not only for our nerves, our hormonal systems, and our brain. And we know that obesity increases inflammation. The actual fat cell itself produces inflammatory things here, and it's going to lead to any number of conditions listed on this, but not limited to things listed here. So we all know there's tons of things that will cause inflammation, and there's an exhaustive list here, and it's probably incomplete. If you just scroll down, one of the things that needs to happen with food, obviously, is people need to make significant changes in what they're eating. As a brief example, we know that gluten-free diet reduces adiposity and inflammation and insulin resistance. So again, here are some more triggers and some signals that drive metabolic risk: and insulin response to food, amount of time you're sedentary, stress-induced eating, sleep and time patterns, toxins, nutrient deficiencies, and one thing to highlight is that microflora gut bacteria. So because it can be quite overwhelming to try to make that many changes all at once, it's more important to make small changes over time to make everything sustainable for people. And I guess we can call it a diet concept that was introduced to me several years ago, was regarding the HCG diet, and it was originally postulated by Dr. Simons, who was in India and started to research why women who were fairly malnourished were able to maintain relatively healthy pregnancies. And he started studying hormones, and he came out with a situation where he decided that human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG, was what made them healthy. So he started injecting people with HCG, and he found that they lost weight, to make a long story short. So the HCG diet became popularized in New York, Los Angeles, etc., where they would inject you and put you on a 500-calorie diet, and obviously people would lose weight at that. So obviously consuming 500 calories a day and injecting hormones in you is not the ideal way to lose weight, but we can take some fairly important information from that work and come up with our own program that will have people lose weight in a healthy way. So some hormone function basics that we need to know. Whenever there's a chronic illness, there's some sort of breakdown in the body's communication, whether that be the nervous system, the hormonal system, or the immune system. There's some sort of breakdown. So whereas the nervous system acts fairly linear, almost like an electrical wire, it's fairly direct, the hormones are a little less linear because these hormones are going through the bloodstream and require receptors to bind to. So classically, we know that certain hormones will promote fat burning, and certain hormones will promote fat retention, and they're listed here: human growth hormone, insulin-like growth factor, glucagon, adrenaline, thyroid hormones, and testosterone. Whereas insulin, estrogen, cortisol are known to be fat-storing hormones. So people in a replacement model might want to think that injecting hormones, these fat-burning hormones, would be a good idea. However, what happens with hormones, much like diabetes, is you become resistant to these things. So obviously it's far more advantageous for your body to work better, obviously to get your hormones working normally rather than to do a replacement type of model. Interesting to note that when any one of these fat storing hormones is dysregulated, all of the fat burning hormones will not work normally. So it is not about hormone replacement, it's about balancing the body so they work normally. So there's some triggers here, a lot of overlap from previous information, that the fat burning triggers and blockers. We know that blood sugar dysregulation leads to insulin resistance. And here's some more things that will throw off your hormones, like chemicals, xenoestrogens, detoxification issues, other stress-related mechanisms, and nutrient deficiencies, sugar overload. We know that once somebody is obese, the flora, the bacteria in their digestive tract actually changes, and dysbiosis can lead to insulin resistance. So that simply means bad bacteria or fungal overgrowth in the small intestine or large intestine or stomach can lead to enough change to make somebody obese. It's also known, going back to the previous information, that normalizing the gut microflora is critical for maintained weight loss. So here's some functions of fat. There's different types of fat: structural, protective, and yellow fat. And obviously the yellow would be inflammatory and immunosuppressive. So in our model here of balancing the body as well as it can to normalize the hormones, the way that we found to expedite the process is to begin an anti-inflammatory type diet. As we go through that, we start some liver detoxification pathways enhancement with some nutrients, and then we put somebody into our Shape Reclaimed program, and that has been the quickest avenue for people to lose and retain fat loss. And it's obviously not for everybody, and some contraindications to a Shape program listed below. This is a doctor-supervised program, and we typically don't take children here, but if somebody's a minor and we happen to take them, we watch them extremely closely. And here's some conditions that will be helped in addition to weight loss, because basically Shape Reclaimed is an anti-inflammatory type of situation where your body's going to start balancing its hormones normally. So some of the nuts and bolts of the Shape Reclaimed program is we're taking a homeopathic, and after we do a fat loading day, we start a reduced calorie type diet, and it's a very specific type of diet. It's got very specific type of foods in there and some very specific restrictions in there as well. Now, phase 2 is what we call the lock-in phase, which is a 21-day type of situation where we've already lost as much weight as we're going to lose from our diet, and whether that be 20, 30, or 40 pounds in the first 4 to 6 weeks. Phase 2 is where we kind of lock it in, our new normal. And then phase 3 is basically a maintenance type of situation. So there's some of the anti-inflammatory foods that we're consuming. Phase 2, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's best to get through phase 1. And phase 3 is where you just have figured out how to control your own metabolism. In office, we do a urinalysis. We're measuring a bunch of metabolites in the urine so that we can evaluate how your body's doing. Lots of diets will fail because the body will go into starvation mode, and that can happen on this diet as well. It really depends on your metabolism, but we're going to monitor to make sure that that's not happening. Lots of times people lose weight and continue continue on in their program, and then they start gaining it back because they're not being monitored of what their body needs. They haven't really found a set point, a new normal per se. And we use these urinalyses and office measurements and some symptom pictures in order to figure out where that is. We do these weekly in office. One critical thing to discuss is the hormonal control is largely going to be driven in the hypothalamus, which is up in the brain. It's kind of the link between the nervous system and the endocrine system, and it coordinates all the other hormones in the body. And resetting the hypothalamus, getting it to function properly, is going to be the way for us to maintain a normal weight long term. And here's some signs and symptoms that we can have aberrant hypothalamus function. Key to the program is following it exactly and getting constant feedback from us, kind of like when after NASA sends a shuttle up into space, they spend 98% of their time course correcting. Once we launch this program with an individual, we spend most of our time course correcting and making some tweaks and refinements and finding ways to break through barriers, and it seems to work really well for us. So our goal for here, as Hippocrates said, everyone has what they need inside of them, although it's becoming less and less true as we become more toxic as a society. However, the natural healing force within each one of us is the greatest force in getting well. The key component in being healthy, not just now, but for the rest of your life, is to never give up trying to improve your health and to have some sort of strategy that every single year you're going to implement something to make yourself healthier. And this might be the time for you to do a shape type of program and or put it in your schedule to do, but no sense putting off till tomorrow what you can start today. Start losing weight, start getting your health back, start feeling better. And one of the key things that people mention about the shape program is they feel great once they get through the first couple days. They start feeling great. A lot of people don't want to come off the program, but we let them know when the time to come off the program is. And it's been a life-changing, incredible program for most people who do it, and especially everyone who does it correctly. And if you have questions on this, feel free to call our office, speak with Eileen or myself. Our phone number is 914-630-7777. Thank you.